So I will turn it over to Katie and Sam and Annie to kick it off. So thank you all for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. We'll kick things off. Welcome to the Google Accessibility Features for Diverse Learners presentation. Myself and Sam will walk you through this. This is a one-to-many presentation, but feel free to pop any questions into the chat throughout the presentation. We will be recording this session, and we will also provide all of these slides after the fact, so you can reference back to them, look at all the resources that we give. So let's jump into things. Quick introduction. My name is Katie Sweeney. I work as a part of the Google for Education team. I'm really passionate about accessibility because my father has a neurodegenerative disease. So I've witnessed firsthand how accessibility tools across all technology can really make a massive difference in someone's life who has any sort of disability. And for anyone who cannot see me, I am a blonde white woman. I'm sitting in my second bedroom within the Chicago area, so I'm nearby you all. And I will turn it over to Sam.
Thank you. I'm Sam. So I am also a part of the Google for Education team. And I do have a lot of passion for this type of work because, similar to Katie, my dad does have a disability. He's legally blind. So I did grow up kind of see him struggling with a lot of the tools, especially being able, not having a hard time being able to read or see things. So just seeing all of the advancements that Google is making is just super exciting for me to see because it helps him out a lot. And for those who are not able to see me, I am a white woman wearing a green sweater, also in my home office in the Denver area. So nice to meet you all.
Love it. All right, so for the purpose of this meeting, we always like to start off highlighting ways that we can make this very session more accessible for everyone. As we all know, video meetings are very important these days and used pretty much every day. So there are some options here up on the screen. You can turn on captions, which we actually have enabled at the presenter level. So hopefully you can all see it at the bottom to read along. And then there are also a couple other shortcuts that are shown within this slide in terms of how you can turn on and off your camera, unmute your microphone very quickly, etc. So please feel free to let me know if you want me to read these off. But again, just some good tips to make sure that this meeting is accessible for everyone attending. And then one other quick tip before we jump into things, outside of Google Meets, but within wider Google Chrome, you can turn on live captioning as well. So this allows your device to stream live captions for any media that you're looking at across the web. It pops up into a separate box and you can follow along there as well. So again, just another tip to be aware of as you take this session and future ones as well, to make things more accessible. All right, so now that we've set up an accessible environment for the session, we can jump in. So today we are going to review 3 different sections. The first one will be an introduction around accessibility and why accessibility is so important in general. From there, we'll jump into accessibility features within Google Workspace and then also go across accessibility features within Chromebooks as well. And then lastly, we will review a couple resources as to where to get more information. This session is very 101, I would say. So we want to kind of spark curiosity, make sure that we're reviewing everything in a wide breadth, and then provide you all the resources to follow up and do any deeper dives, reach out for additional sessions, etc. So jumping into the intro, 1 billion people worldwide have a disability, which is massive. That is actually about 15% of the world's population. So there is a really high possibility that at some point, almost all of us on this call right now will be disabled in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's acquired, a permanent disability, it could be temporary, like a broken ankle. Pregnancy is actually identified as a disability within the ADA. So disabilities are widespread and they're not always visible or very apparent. So this means that every teacher out there, whether they know it or not, is likely teaching someone that has some type of disability. We do categorize disabilities in these 4 buckets in order to kind of assess what accessibility features work best for different types. So the 4 buckets are vision disabilities, hearing, motor ones, and then cognitive as well. Diving a bit deeper into children specifically, there are 93 million children that live with a disability worldwide today. So again, a massive, very widespread bucket of people. And not all of these children are in special education classes. Most of them are actually within general EDU classes. So this session, we hope, is not just helpful for special ed teachers, but also general ed teachers as well. And differentiation options can help aid teachers to be more universal in their teaching styles or approach for inclusive learning for everyone, whether they have a disability or not. As we all know, access can change a child's entire life trajectory, so it is really important to ensure that all students can adequately learn given their disability and given just their learning styles in general. So we talk a lot about equity here at Google, and I love this slide because it does a really good job of explaining equity versus equality. So I will describe the graphic for those of you who may not be able to see it. There are two separate rows. Within the top one, it is labeled equality. And all 4 people are being treated the exact same. So there's 4 people on bicycles. There's 1 person that's in a wheelchair, so they can't even sit on this bicycle. There's a very tall person that's slouched over on the bicycle. It fits well for 1 person, and then there's a very short person that can't reach the pedals of the bicycle. In the equity row, everyone has a different type of bicycle. So there's a recumbent bike with hand controls for the user that's in a wheelchair. There's a taller bike for the taller user and a shorter one for the shorter person. So everyone has a bike that they can actually use here. So the main takeaway is that equality really focuses on having the same exact inputs, so giving everyone the same exact thing, whereas equity focuses on having the exact same outputs. So everyone achieving equal levels of success given their inputs that they have. So in order to achieve an equitable outcome for our colleagues and our users and our students, we need to design our workplace culture and our products with those individual needs in mind, which is where accessibility comes into play. So within education, it's not always just about giving every child the exact same education. It's really about tailoring their education experience to them to make sure that they have the equal output of being able to learn adequately. So we love to look at one example of how accessibility has played out here at Google. In this example, Thomas Pansick is the CEO of Guiding Eyes, and he is a blind man. He is an athlete, a father, a runner, and a CEO. He also has a genetic condition that caused him to lose his eyesight as a young adult. And he was always a runner growing up. So with the loss of his eyesight, he also lost some of his independence, including the ability to run by himself. So being able to do this independently was really important to him. He actually attended a hackathon event at Google, and he posed the question of how can technology make running for a blind person possible? So our engineers created an app that actually notifies blind runners with sounds. So if something is potentially in their way, they'll know what to avoid. And after many, many iterations and kind of updates to it, the result is really inspiring. So we'll watch just a portion of this clip.
Well, we've been waiting for 25 years for this minute.
People with vision don't want blind people to take risks. That's what keeps people who are blind from participating in society fully. The safest thing for a blind person to do is to sit still. I ain't sitting still. There was no tether. There was no stick. There was no furry dog. It was just being with yourself.
Absolute freedom. Oh my goodness. That's the first time I've run alone in decades. Just through the woods, you know, by myself. I never thought we'd be here.
So very inspiring. This is just one of many examples of how accessibility can really improve someone with a disability's life in many ways, shapes, and forms. So with that wraps up the introduction. Before we move on, are there any questions at all in terms of just kind of the macro trends that we shared here and why accessibility is so important? Good. All right, great. Then I will pass it over to Sam to start jumping into some of our accessibility features.
Thank you, Katie. I think every time you play that video, I think I just feel a new sense of emotions. I love it. So thank you for playing it. But now we want to dive into what's built directly into Google Workspace. This is a slide with all of the icons. I'm sure you're familiar with these products. Just to make it interactive, if you all want to share in the chat which product you use most or which ones that you're most familiar with. I would say for myself, I think naturally Gmail is probably the one that I use most, but close second would be Meets. Given the virtual world, I feel like I'm using Meets several times a day. But there's a ton of close thirds as well. So Docs, Sheets, Slides, use them all often. I'm seeing Slides, Docs for recipes. That's a good tip. Gmail and chat. Yeah. So I'm glad that we have a lot of active Google Workspace users. Calendar. Yeah. Same. But yeah, thank you. Okay, moving on to automated real-time captioning. So within Workspace, we have real-time captioning, specifically within Slides. As a presenter or a teacher, you can toggle on captions for your audience. So that will actually allow you to choose between sizes, font, etc. So think of these captions as something built in being presented to your audience, kind of like we have now. So I'm not sure if you're able to see on the screen, but the bottom of that slide is actually capturing everything that I'm saying. So within Google Meet, just wanted to call out, it is an individual user setting. So there is closed captioning icons on the bottom right of your screen, where each person can decide if they want additional captioning on or not. So Google Meet captioning can support multiple languages, so including English, Spanish, Portuguese, etc. There are a myriad of languages that are supported through that tool. And a good example where this would be useful, it maybe would be a parent-teacher conference where maybe a parent's first language is not English. So it could be useful for first-time English language learners. And again, the main difference between Slides is that it is owned at the presenter level, whereas within Meets, it's done at the individual level for the user. And moving on to closed captions, specifically within Drive. So on any Google Drive file, you can upload a file of a script for any video or file where the captions can appear on playback. So this is helpful for folks that may be hard of hearing or those who have a better experience learning or listening at their own pace. And next, so keyboard. If any student or anyone wanted to navigate Workspace using only their keyboard, it's definitely possible. So if you do remember one single shortcut from this presentation, specifically in keyboard, remember Control-Command/. This will pop up all of the keyboard shortcuts that are available to you within Workspace. And voice typing. So this is a super popular tool that we have within Workspace. It is a speech-to-text tool that is built within mostly Google Docs. It is a great way for a student to voice out what they're saying and a great idea or a way for them to get ideas out on paper. So for example, if you have writer's block and you're having trouble maybe voicing out the ideas or things that you want to write, this voice to text option is really great among other potential useful cases as well. And you're going to find the most robust voice typing in Docs that will also help you format things that you're trying to say. This tool is also available in Slides, but please know it's in the speakers section and not the slide itself. And moving on to magnification. So Workspace has built-in magnification settings and also works with third-party magnification tools. So one important step to take wherever you are in Google Docs is that there is a tools menu. So you'll want to access the tools menu, scroll down to accessibility settings, where you have the opportunity to turn on things like screen reader, magnifier, collaborator announcements, and Braille support. So our advice would be to, at the start of each semester or class, walk through these with your students so that they can select all of them. And if they ever need to use any of these tools, they will be available to them on the platform. And moving to high contrast, dark mode. So this is the ability to change the coloring and lighting of your Google Workspace products. So this tool is really useful as a personal preference or helpful for users with low vision. This is also good for your own personal health, especially if you're staring at a screen all day. Your eyes can definitely become strained. This is where the dark mode is definitely helpful. And moving to screen reader. So Workspace supports an entire range of screen readers. You can also leverage a built-in screen reader within Docs, Sheets, and Slides. And you'd want to take the same steps of accessing this tool by going to accessibility settings and turning on this functionality. And the best way to enact the screen reader in real time, once it's been enabled, is to hit Control-Alt-Z. And this tool is definitely very helpful for students or anyone with visual disabilities. And all screen readers are able to be used across platforms using Workspace. And one extra call out, Chromebox within Chromebook screen readers we'll discuss in the next section, but it's a tool that you can use in all of like the Chromebook settings. And moving to Braille. So good rule of thumb, if it is supported by a screen reader, Braille support will also be available. We've had this for a few years now, but this tool is not as well known. So your students could use Workspace using Braille keyboard or device. This is helpful for students with low vision or who are blind. And this is something that does require a third-party tool. And when you are enabling Braille support, you can also improve the experience for screen reader users through things like consistent verbalization, respecting screen reader settings, and supporting native screen reader shortcuts. Live edits and docs. So this is something that I am super familiar with and that I find useful. It is exactly what it says it does exactly what it says it does. So it announces live changes to a shared doc. Collaborator announcements is the biggest thing here. So if you are blind or have low vision, it's sometimes hard to see who is in the document or what they're writing. So collaborated announcements will announce this and a summary of edits being made to users to be spoken out loud. This assists users of differing disabilities to collaborate with other students, teachers, and aides. And content within Docs, Sheets, Slides. There are multiple templates created and available across Workspace products. All of them are accessible and have baseline accessibility structures right out the gate. So you can select templates for students and make sure these accessibility features are built in for them. Think of these as shortcuts to set a student up for success with a template to plug into their schoolwork, their presentations, etc. You can add alt to text images as well. So this will provide descriptions of an image, which is helpful for those using a screen reader, so they can get a description of what the image is instead of hearing JPEG file. So when you do have the start of class or semester, we suggest to have students explore the different texts or the different templates that are available to them and try to explore these yourself so that you can assign for future products or projects to your students. And moving on to helpful intelligence. This is also something that I find extremely useful. On the Workspace side of things, we've built a lot of helpful intelligence into tools to anticipate sentences or words that you may be wanting to say to help save time and cognitive effort. So to do this, when they give you a suggestion, you would click Tab to accept the phrase. Smart Compose has also come over to Google Docs with new features, inclusive languages, and editorial recommendations, all helping to make writing concise. Google Forms also has Smart Compose and can suggest responses where people can add to questions. So for example, if you're sending out a form to maybe a parent collecting t-shirt sizes, it will automatically provide options for your user to select. And Google Docs and Sheets have explored tools as well to help navigate the internet within Docs to search in order to not have to open up a separate internet browser. And that is the last of our workspace presentation. So just want to hold in case anyone has questions specific to that. I didn't get the chance to look at chat. So if there was any questions there, I'm sorry for missing them, but it doesn't look like there is. So feel free to come off mute if any of you have questions. Otherwise, we can pass it over to Katie to talk about Chromebook accessibility features.
Great. Yeah, feel free to follow up with questions in the chat. All right, so as Sam mentioned, that wrapped up the workspace side of things. So now we'll dive into Chromebook specific accessibility features. So the main difference here, I'd say, is the workspace accessibility features are available across any type of computer and any platform. These Chromebook accessibility features are specific to actual Chromebook hardware devices and work across the entire computer. So no matter what you're browsing, what you're doing, these features would work there. And it looks like we got a question. Let me see. Anyone else using any of those features? Oh yes, Annie, love that. So feel free to pop in whatever features we just reviewed that you use. We tend to find that cross-sharing between educators and anyone within the EDU space is very helpful, and people get a lot of takeaways from hearing how other people are using the features. All right, so jumping into things. So just like within Workspace, we have a range of assistive technologies built directly into Chromebooks to leverage. The difference, as I mentioned, is this is across the entire computer. So no matter what you're browsing or doing, you can leverage these wherever. So we have different kind of categories here. We have visual support, auto captioning, screen reading support, alternative input, and then lastly, some Chrome extensions. So we'll dive into each of these separate categories within the upcoming slides. Oh, and I'm sorry, for some reason, the captions keep turning on and off. There we go. All right. So first, just jumping into supporting students who have low vision within Chromebooks. So first thing I want to call out is within the lower right-hand corner, there is a system menu tray within Chromebooks, and that is where your accessibility menu is available. So that's the easiest way to directly access the full range of accessibility settings for everything that we'll review here. So that should be kind of like your home base to go to for students. So here are a few examples of things that you can try to leverage to help students who may not be able to see their screen very well. So first, you can increase the size of your cursor or increase the text size for better visibility. This is very helpful if a student is following along doing something with you and just making sure that it's large enough for them to see. Secondly, you can add a highlighted circle around your cursor. So when the mouse moves, the text caret, or when it's typing, there's a colorful ring that will appear when it's in motion, so the student can track the actual mouse. And then when you stop moving it, it will fade away, so it's not kind of in the way of whatever you're doing or reading. But very good for tracking, and again, just good for a student that might have low vision. For any student that has light sensitivity or eye strain, you can turn on high contrast mode, similar to how you can within Workspace, but across the entire Chromebook. You can also increase the size of your browser or the app content to make everything within the screen larger. So not just specifically one piece of the content, but the actual entire screen. So again, just great for visibility. For even higher levels of zoom, you can do a full screen or docked magnifier within Chromebook as well. So the full screen magnifier is exactly what it sounds like. It will zoom the entire screen, whereas the docked magnifier will make the top 1/3 of the screen an extremely magnified area. So wherever your mouse is hovering over, it will kind of like extreme zoom into at the top. And then lastly here, there is automatic alt text available as well. So when a student is using a screen reader within a Chromebook, they can get Google to automatically provide descriptions of any image that's unlabeled. So if the user is on a website and a picture does not have alt text already there, Google can leverage AI to actually create some sort of description for the student to still be able to understand what the image is showing. So that wraps up all of the features for any student who is potentially low vision. Moving on, features that help students with reading and understanding text. So this can be helpful for students with a visual disability as well, or if they're learning a new language, among many other disabilities as well. So first and foremost, there is Select to Speak available within Chromebooks. So this is where the student can actually choose an area on the screen to have it spoken out loud to them. So if there's one paragraph or something that a student is having a really hard time understanding, they can have it read out loud to them versus having to read it themselves. Within Chromebox, Sam mentioned this earlier, but this is the built-in screen reader across Chromebooks. So they can leverage the entire Chromebook using this screen reader. It's very in-depth. It works very, very well. Definitely a good resource for students to tap into. So this is very beneficial for students who have significant vision loss. And then lastly, there is a Chrome extension that we like to call out here. And it's called the Read and Write extension. So this is helpful for spelling and grammar checks. So within talking and picture dictionaries, text-to-speech, and additional reading and writing supports, it's all within one place, and it can help students just navigate their grammar and having spelling checks kind of built in across the entire Chromebook. All right, next, supporting students that may have limited hearing. So we've talked a lot about live captions already. These are available within Google Slides and Google Meet, as Sam mentioned, and this will display the speaker's words in real time, similar to what you're seeing right now. And it captures it very well. I'm noticing that every single word is it's perfect, which is really amazing to see. For any users who may have limited hearing in one ear versus both, there is also a feature called mono audio, which allows you to play the same sound through both speakers or both headphones. So again, just something good to know if a student may have like more loss in one ear versus another. And Chromebooks, you can also send the same audio out of both speakers just on the actual Chromebook as well. So similar to mono audio, but within the Chromebook and not within actual headphones. All right, next section is about how to guide students with writing challenges or mobility impairments in general. So any fine motor skills that might make it difficult to type or to use a physical mouse or keyboard, there's a lot of resources here as well. So first and foremost is dictation. This allows users to speak to the Chromebook to enter text into any field. So a blinking cursor would appear, and then students would be able to say what they want to enter the text in. And sorry, one second, let me turn these back on. Okay. So again, just great for students that may not be able to actually type on a keyboard or would do so very slowly. They can speak their words out loud to be able to navigate across the Chromebook. Students with mobility impairments can use features like the on-screen keyboard as well to type using a mouse or a pointer device instead of using an actual keyboard. Another feature is automatic clicks. This is something you can set up within your accessibility settings, and you can set up a timer like 3 seconds or so. And when the user stops moving their mouse, it will automatically click on that spot after 3 seconds pass. So the user doesn't have to actually click down onto the mouse. So again, helpful if for some reason the student is unable to actually click onto the mouse. And then lastly is sticky keys. This is a really great feature as well. This is helpful for shortcuts. So as you all know, you have to select multiple buttons at once to do any sort of shortcut. Sticky keys allows you to select one button at a time, and it will still understand that that's supposed to be a command and then be able to navigate towards that. So again, if the student has issues being able to select multiple things at once, sticky keys would be a good resource there. All right, another great call out is that switch access devices are completely compatible across entire Chromebooks. So if a student is leveraging this, just know that it can be integrated with their Chromebook, and they can leverage it navigating across not even just the internet, but the entire interface. And then the last section here is all about Chrome extensions. So these are all small software programs that can customize the browsing experience even more. So they enable users to tailor the Chrome functionality and behavior to their specific individual needs or preferences. So up here, you'll see a plethora of different apps and extensions that are available. We do like to call out a couple specific ones on the next couple slides that we tend to hear educators use pretty often. But one call out here is that you do need to make sure that your administrator allows you to download these extensions. So just make sure that any firewall or kind of blockage that's in place for extensions is taken away to make sure that you can actually leverage these great resources. So first example, here's some specific ones for reducing clutter and distractions. The Magic Scroll web reader will remove any clutter from a very busy website for easier reading. So that can be a great resource for students with ADHD or any sort of reading disability. Another great example for increasing visibility and reducing eye strain is the Beeline reader. So this will reduce eye strain and assist with eye tracking, a great resource for students who may have dyslexia. And then lastly, improving content interaction. We all know that the web can be very distracting for students. And one that I love to call out here is the Dual-less, which allows you to split screens on your Chromebook, similar to like a dual monitor. This is something that I use in my day-to-day for my job as well. I find it very helpful. So if a student, again, with ADHD or any sort of learning disability, it can be helpful for navigating back and forth between different content. And then I will pass it back to Sam to review the rest of the content.
Totally. So we have AAC, which is a clicker communicator app. And this is an app that gives a voice to young people with speech and language challenges. It helps aid communication with symbols and text-to-speech. AAC is highly compatible with Chromebooks and Google Drive. Then moving to features built into Android devices. So we covered Workspace and Chromebooks, but we also have great accessibility features that are built in to Android devices. So if you do use an Android device, we wanted to call out a few key features. One is TalkBack. So this will allow you to fully interact with what's on your screen through sound and touch. You would use TalkBack to hear everything from notifications to app names to how much battery life you have left. We also have a feature called Live Transcribe. So you can get real-time captions right away as you're having a conversation. And then live caption for calls. With a single tap, live caption automatically captions videos, podcasts, and audio messages, even stuff that you record yourself without ever needing Wi-Fi or mobile data. There are a few other features as well, one being Lookout. So this allows users to use their camera to help identify what's nearby. From that story that we heard earlier in the video, this was super useful. And we have a team at Google that is dedicated to making actions for users with cognitive disabilities. And tips for inclusive learning. So as Katie mentioned earlier, we've given this presentation for about 6 years, and a lot of the tips shared in presentations like these have been super helpful for educators and teachers. So something that you might use individually for your classroom would be super helpful to share to another teacher that might not know of a certain feature or tip. So if you do have an example to share, feel free to do that in chat. We do have a few tips that we've heard in the past listed on the slide. So ranging from things like color coding in Drive folder, slides for note-taking, using forms for individual education programs. There's definitely a few different examples, and we definitely love to hear from teachers on what's super useful for them in their classroom. I'll leave that open for maybe a couple minutes. Feel free to continue to add in the chat. But moving forward to more information. So if you need additional resources, you can access these sites. So we have Google Accessibility site, a help center, user guide and education specific site. Like we said, we'll send out this deck afterwards so you can access those different sites if you need to. And then getting in touch with our team. So if you're using one of these products or features and you're having technical difficulties, you can feel free to reach out to the disability support team or that accessible@googlegroups.com. But if there's any questions that you might have about this presentation itself, Katie and I are more than happy to talk one-on-one. Also, if you see a use for this presentation to other teachers or any larger groups that might benefit from this information, feel free to get in touch with us as well. We would be happy to consider just sharing this information more broadly with anyone that you feel would find it useful. And that is it. So thank you so much for everyone who joined. We will definitely be staying on for a bit to answer any questions. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining, and we hopefully it was useful to everyone that was here.